My boss is going to be like, wow, you chose the windiest day on all days to do this.
And this is the least windy day we had.
Oh, perfect. All right. Hey everyone, it's Andrew with the Alliance for Innovation Infrastructure, and today I'm with Gabriel Ford, and we're going to be talking about what he does in Yellowstone National Park. Thank you so much for meeting me here today on the Yellowstone River in beautiful Montana. Tell me about what you do.
I, for the last several years, have worked as a outdoor educator providing interpretive tours in Yellowstone National Park, basically going around and teaching people about the cultural, historical, geological, and biological relevance of the national park. What got me into the line of work, honestly, was nothing more than years and years of exploring the park, learning from some of the top scientists in the park, and realizing after several years that I thought I had enough knowledge now to start sharing that with other people and maybe make a living out of doing that.
What kind of scientific research do they do at the Yellowstone National Park?
Yellowstone National Park is kind of an outdoor living laboratory. So when it comes to scientific research in the park, we have the Yellowstone Volcanic Observatory. So it is one of, if not the largest volcanic observatory in the world. So we have geologists from all over the planet that are studying the Yellowstone volcano. We are doing biological studies. Yellowstone is home to a pretty famous wolf reintroduction in 1995 and 1996. So biological studies are a big component of Yellowstone National Park, and then the geology. When it comes to climate conservation as a company, we're rather low impact as it is. It's not too hard for us to stay on an environmentally sound path. When it comes to our operation, the biggest thing we probably do that harms the park would be exhaust from vehicles as we tour around the park, So there are little things we do. I think it's fair to understand that the effect is rather minimal, but with as many people as come to Yellowstone every year, overall, it does have an accumulative effect. And so things like shutting your car off every time you stop. Little things like that. You don't think about it, but when you pull into a pullout to observe some of the wildlife in Yellowstone, just shutting your car off, that saves a lot of exhaust right there from polluting the air. And there have been studies that have shown different national parks with some of the worst pollution of anywhere in the United States.
Other than that best practice, what else would you like the public to know? Obviously, last year in June, we had one of the worst floods to ever hit Yellowstone. How did that impact the park and the infrastructure?
It shut down the northern entrance of Yellowstone to the regular public for, that was mid-June until the end of October, basically. A lot of companies I talked to in Gardner, Montana, on the northern border of the town there, which had the entrance shut down to it, they were down 70%. It's my business, and this is pretty true across the board. I think you'll find we're down in tours. People probably hesitant to book when they don't know for sure, if they're going to have accessibility, when we recommend booking a year in advance. Oh, wow. So, yeah.
With the amount of tourists that are coming into Yellowstone each year, what is the effect on the general roads, bridges? What does that look like in terms of the deficiency of bridges, if any? How often do roads have to be repaired?
I can remember when I first moved to Yellowstone within the first couple of years and seeing a large operation, a large road project get completed, and mentioned to a friend of mine, it's almost all done around the park. I can't wait to see it when all the roads are done being worked on. And he looked at me with the craziest look in his eyes and just said, Gabe, there's never a moment when that happens. It's an ongoing project. We have a very short amount of time every year to work on the infrastructure in the park due to our long, cold winters. And so, yeah, it's never ending, and it's far behind schedule. I think it's very easy to go around the park and look at the different bridges, especially throughout the park, and see the wear and tear on them and the need for rebuilding. In fact, due to the flooding last year, a project to put in a new bridge had to be delayed. That's just one more problem we have on top of lack of funding, et cetera, et cetera.
What would you like policymakers and lawmakers to know, especially regarding funding and other things surrounding climate conservation, infrastructure resilience?
I would like people to know, especially those in charge of policy decisions, that this is not an isolated event. This is the most extreme event like this we've seen, and all indications are that this is going to become much more common. What happened last year was a winter's worth of snowpack overnight fell into the rivers because 4 inches of rain hit the high country in early June. We used to be snowing in the high country well in June. What we saw here in our recovery for our roads into Yellowstone was phenomenal. It was quick, effective. They got it back up and going very, very quickly, I felt. But that's not going to be worth anything if we don't start making policy decisions that address climate change. Until we see that happening, we're just putting band-aids on a bigger problem.
What do you think the result will be if better practices are not implemented?
First thing that comes to my mind would be access to the park being interrupted. Events like what we just saw last summer maybe becoming more and more frequent. Hopefully not as large scale as what we saw last year, but hard to say. Roads very frequently follow rivers, especially throughout the park. And so if the rivers flood, obviously that puts those roads in danger. Offhand, I mean, obviously you see the infrastructure being affected. That affects the tourism, then that affects all these businesses. All the local communities are going to be affected by that. And so, yeah, it's a big rippling effect. I'm sure we could go way deeper, but from my standpoint, that's where I see the issues.